starting with Gianni Storm today. Looks like Biden's moratorium on evictions is moving forward. Tell us what's going on, Gianni.
Okay, so a federal judge in D.C. declined to block Joe Biden's moratorium on evictions imposed by the CDC. So the district court judge, Frederick, rejected an effort by a group of property owners to put the moratorium on hold. Um, Challengers argued that because the Supreme Court signaled the CDC that the CDC lacked the necessary legal authority, the current moratorium is invalid too because it is based on the same public health law. So my question to the panel, do you believe the moratorium is the right thing for citizens, American citizens at this time? And what are some pros and cons of this moratorium?
All right. I'm going to start with Robbie Rocco.
I see the moratorium as being a responsible thing because as I was preparing for this story, started a couple of different sites and just to brush up. And I saw a really interesting image with the protesters that eviction equals death. And in many instances, I would absolutely agree with that because if you are homeless, it puts you at a much higher risk category, and especially during a pandemic. For businesses, they're in a tough spot because, I mean, people are staying at home. They're not shopping. They're not engaged in the local economy the way that they were previously in order to be able to sustain a business.
Does the moratorium work towards businesses as well?
Yeah.
Is it?
It does.
Yeah, both residential and commercial. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Renters.
And the moratorium covers 91% of counties, I think it is, throughout America. And
I think
some
it's 80,
states some states and counties have put their own moratoriums in place just to uphold them. Cons is pretty straightforward. If I'm a business or if I'm a property owner, then I could be without revenue that I need in order to survive. But there are federal subsidies that are available for that as well. But I know that they're very behind in distributing these funds. This is why people are behind on their rents. It's a tough situation,
and it's not easy to get those funds either. I mean,
no, it
not
isn't.
only not easy, but the funds they give you don't really cover much of anything in many cases.
Yeah, not rent for 3 months back.
Lizzie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I think one of the things we need to take into consideration with Gianni's question is that Americans, the people that are being affected by this, aren't just big business conglomerates. Okay. I know a lot of people like you and me that are property owners, that are landlords, that have lost a lot of money over the past year because they haven't gotten anything in rent. I have a friend in Queens, New York. She inherited her mom's property, I'm going to say like maybe 10 years ago. And so instead of selling it, she decided to rent it out. Okay. The pandemic happens, it hits her and her husband hard with their regular business outside of real estate, also hits her renters, her tenants hard. At this point, we're in August of 2021. She hasn't gotten any money in 10 months. They haven't paid rent in 10 months. But according to her, they had a party for Memorial Day. They had a party for 4th of July, which included fireworks, which the cops had to be called. And so I think we need to consider both, like Rob alluded to, we need to consider both sides of the coin here.
Yeah.
Like not all, landlords are big property management companies, especially in the Black community where we are encouraging people to invest in generational wealth, to become entrepreneurs, to step outside of their 9 to 5 and have a side hustle where they're also making money. They're being affected too. And I think, unfortunately, with any type of situation, a lot of people are taking advantage.
Yeah.
A lot of people are taking advantage. And so I understand the moratorium. I get it. I get it. But at the same time, I'm just like, But what do we do for the other side? Because the moratorium on mortgages ended early July. So if you're a property owner, you're not getting any money, you're not getting any break right now. I know I live in a very expensive apartment in Washington D.C. and we started getting emails from the property management company. I'm going to say like maybe 6-7 months ago, encouraging people to apply for the government funds that will help you pay rent. That's another thing. Like a lot of people aren't applying for funds that can help them. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people are mismanaging those funds that can help
Yeah.
them. A lot of people aren't applying the funds that they get to rent.
Mhm.
And what everyone doesn't understand, the moratorium doesn't mean an alleviation.
Right. That's
You still have to pay once
Yeah.
everything ends, and so that means you're going to be 6, 7, 8 months in
They,
for rent plus all of the interest and late fees. Like there's a lot that goes into this, and
it's
I
true.
just think
It's true.
the government needs to step in on both sides and kind of figure out a middle ground that could be beneficial to both sides, but
Both.
also
Yeah.
some renters, I'm not saying all, some renters need to start taking responsibility because there are a lot of people out here who think that this is a free for all
Mhm.
and that they
Mhm.
don't have to do anything, that they don't. I've seen it. I've seen
I
it.
too.
Look at your social media posts and people boasting about
Mhm.
shit.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm just like I feel because
Li-
you know
Lizzie, you and I are.
I
I
are
was
we about to agree again?
it's
Are we about
I
to
don't know
agree
what
again?
the hell is going on lately. We're
I mean,
absolutely
Lord.
agreeing. We're absolutely agreeing.
when the lockdown when we first went into the lockdown for the pandemic, I had 2 jobs. Okay, I was a professor at Howard, which was paying me nothing, so I had to take on a second job in the service industry at a restaurant, and the service industry shut down immediately. And so because of that, I was furloughed and qualified for unemployment. So unemployment for the first 6 months, maybe a little bit longer in the US, was $888 after taxes, $888 per week, right? For the average person the average person in the United States, that is kind of more than what you're getting from your regular job, unfortunately.
Right.
Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's kind of more than what you're getting for your regular job. So I was still working at Howard, getting my earned unemployment. So I was able to pay my rent for months.
Yeah.
I was able to pay my rent. But unemployment, it ends, it dissipates,
Yeah.
it stops. Like it's not unlimited unemployment. So the question becomes for some of these people, what have you been doing with that
Mhm.
money?
Yeah.
Or I said to a friend a couple of weeks ago who hasn't been working for over a year, there are a lot of remote jobs that you could apply for. Why aren't you attempting to work? And her response to me was, well, because I'm getting that check.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me jump in here real quick because I agree with you on every single
Sounds like
point you've
people I
stated.
know.
Actually, I mean, even down to like you say, the unemployment because
Yeah.
there's an extreme labor shortage in the country right now, and that's because of the unemployment checks. But a lot of people are taking advantage, and that's where the problem is. I get I like Lizzie. I get the reason for the moratorium because we don't want people thrown out on their asses when they're struggling to get jobs and things like that. But there has to
Yeah.
come a point in time where we find a different solution to the problem, whether it's some type of rental assistance or something. Because I don't want to repeat everything that Lizzie said because she said it so well. But the landlords, are not making any money. I mean, I even look at like
They have to pay too. Yeah.
so so of course my wife owns Posh Cycling and Fitness, Posh.fit. And the only reason we've been able to survive was because the landlord was working with her, right? She said, hey, there was a period of time where she couldn't pay at all. Then there was a period of time where she could pay a little bit. And then, well, the thing is, we had to meet with him because he was like, I need you to start paying. I need you to start paying. And we met with him, we sat down with him, and the landlord, great landlord, by the way, great landlord, but he was honest with us about his situation.
Exactly.
And he told us
Exactly.
that he has a cash flow issue because he also has his own business. He's a dentist, and his dentistry business dropped, so he can't supplement, his commercial business as well. He can't pay for the bills there because his whole dental business died, and he has a huge cash flow issue. And he wants to help, and he's tried to help, but now he's at a point where he just can't anymore. And so we had to find a good middle ground where we were able to come to a good middle ground. But the thing is, he's working with us. Most landlords may not be, but it's because of
Yeah.
this problem. This problem of they are not making money and they need to make money. How else are they surviving, if, especially if this is your primary source of income? And the economy is still strong, which is strange. And there are jobs out there. So there comes a point in time where people can pay their rent actually. They just need to find the position. Some people may not be able, there are certain situations, and I think the government needs to start looking at specific situations and helping those individuals. That's what they should be doing. If you're going to set aside money,
Yeah, they
set
should.
aside money for specific situations and help those specific situations.
When you have to decide between paying rent or groceries or your lights, there's a problem.
Right.
That's when the
And you need to be
government
able to
or
show that
somebody
that's
should
the case. Right.
step in.
At
Yeah.
this
But you also
point,
need to be you need to be proactive, I think, in helping yourselves. And my God, I feel like I'm sounding like, a old decrepit Republican here. But at the same time, it's just like, the government is only responsible for you up until a point.
right. It's true.
But
And
what if people
there
don't
is
have online skills and they're more like trade workers and their trade can't be like if they go out, there's not a lot
how,
of work
how did
anymore because of that.
how did they find that trade job to begin with? Like, you have to
True.
network. It's
Mhm.
2021. You have to network.
Adapt.
You have to
Adapt.
you have to adapt and keep up with the times.
And the
And
economy is
again,
good, and there
listen,
are jobs. I'm telling you, there
I've
are
been
jobs.
for
Yeah, a
anyone
lot.
who
There are.
thinks that, I'm speaking from a position of privilege. I was down and out before the pandemic. Okay? Before the
Yeah.
which is why I had a second job, because I
Yeah.
wasn't being paid well at my primary job and the bills kept coming. I had just moved to DC. I incurred a whole bunch of debt when I moved here, didn't have a job that was paying me for months. So I was like, okay, well, no one's going to pay this debt for you. You have to figure out how you're going to do this for yourself. You got to be
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that hustle. And I think a lot of
Yes.
people during the pandemic have taken the situation for granted and aren't about that hustle. But we need to also understand that landlords have bills too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Landlords have
They do.
bills too. Like, this isn't, you're not a landlord and you are just a part of the supreme uber rich, and you don't, you can just own these things and you're taking all of these money.
No.
Like, every person that I know that owns property is a regular motherfucker.
Yeah.
They're regular.
Regular.
They're regular.
Yeah.
Just
And this is something that I thought about when my mom passed away, and we had the opportunity to, after the reverse mortgage, we had the opportunity to buy the house outright and potentially rent it. I was like, I want no part of being a landlord for this very reason. I don't have the income to supplement people who cannot pay me rent. I don't have that. And I think people need to start understanding that landlord does not mean XYZ company. It's people like us who are also landlords. So this is affecting everyone. And I'm not against the moratorium. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is everyone needs to do their part,
And I think it
renters
needs to be done
included.
better. I think the moratorium
Renter,
needs a little more
exactly.
thought.
done better. Yeah, it
Renters
needs more
and
thought.
government included.
For sure.
Renters and government included. But you can't
Yeah.
just be sitting
Yeah.
out here doing nothing, not trying to help yourself, thinking, well, I don't have to pay rent this month. I'm not going to have to pay rent. You don't have
Yeah.
the right to live on a property for free that you don't own.
It can't be just moratorium and go.
That
All right,
mindset is an issue as well. That's true.
let's get to actually, this was a pretty hot topic. Let me. So Ernest Cooper says, "Great point, Lizzie. Landlords are Jacqueline Robb says, landlords are sometimes left holding the bag. They want to get rid of shitty tenants and can't. That's often."
Yeah.
Mike Wolf, mortgages should also be forgiven. Banks can take care of themselves. Now that I agree with.
And like I said,
Banks can figure
the
that out.
Oh
moratorium
yeah,
for
that's true.
mortgages, the moratorium for mortgages ended in
That's true.
July.
Now that
The
which should be
property
addressed.
owners are at at a standstill.
The banks will survive.
Wow.
I mean, you don't have to, even if it's like a longer period of time, the banks will do just fine. Especially after
Yeah,
we
they
gave them a
will.
bailout.
Right. And even during recessions, the banks seem to be able to post profits and pay their dividends and pay their bonuses. They always find a way. Insurance companies too. So you know what? Instead of paying it to the execs and to the shareholders, pay it back down to the people who are putting the money into your goddamn system that enable you to keep becoming ultra rich.
Yeah.
It's
This
time
is
to
one
stop
thing.
becoming ultra rich and just take care of the 99%.
Yep.
So when we were younger, and my sister, Jacqueline Robinson, who's
Yeah.
watching this, my dad used
Real
to
quick.
say this to us all the time. The two main bills that you need to pay in life, rent/mortgage, he considered those to be the same. Rent/mortgage, so you can have a roof over your head, and your electricity bill, so you could have lights inside.
Yeah.
Everything else is
Power.
kind of like, okay, you get it how you get it, but you need a place to live, and you need to be able to see where you're living. And I don't think a lot of people are understanding that. I
So
Yeah, those are
appreciate the
vital.
moratorium. I appreciate the more, because I could have taken advantage of it, but I'm like, no, I work.
we're running
I'm
short
going
on
to do
time.
this.
So
But
I
we
could've
got to
too.
do better. The
Yeah.
government and people, we have to do better on both sides.
All
On
right.
both sides.
So Daria Winter says it's sometimes easy to make these comments about the poor. See the numbers of children who will be on the streets, about who are going to be on the streets without heat this summer. That's something. I mean, she makes a good point. And again, I don't think any of us are against the moratorium itself. We just think it should be
No,
Definitely.
better
but
itself.
Yeah.
And Mike Winter says labor shortage is not because of unemployment checks, sir. Talking to me clearly. That's a fallacy from the right. Liz's anecdotal evidence suggests that we don't know if the majority of the people who refuse to go back to McDonald's for minimum wage for 39 hours and no benefits. All right. I mean, to that point, yes, we don't know that that's fully the problem, but I think it contributes.
Right.
I think it definitely is a contributing factor. And Latoya Blakely also says that I can't judge those who would rather collect unemployment too harshly, because most people who do go to work, especially in those perilous times where going to work means potentially exposing yourself to vulnerable loved ones to COVID, aren't paid enough by these companies to even afford the basic necessities. Worse still, most of these
Yeah.
companies can afford to pay people a livable wage and don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
All right.
Very
let's
well
just look
said.
for remote jobs,
we-
people. There are tons of
What are we
remote
calling this,
jobs out
guys? Is this
there.
truth, lies, or shenanigans?
Yeah, there are.
Truth.
I'm going with truth. No shenanigans here. Oh, you got
Shenanigans.
shenanigans. All right.
Lizzie.
Lizzie's calling shenanigans. Everybody
Shenanigans.
else has got truth. All right.
Shenanigans.
She's calling some shenanigans on that one.
I'm a hustler, y'all. I'm a hustler. I'm going to work till the day I
Yeah.
die.
And Manfred says, agreed, we
No
have to do better.
excuses.
Manfred Chinkota says, agreed, we have to do better.
We do, both sides. I'm not
Yeah, we
giving the
do.
government a pass here. I'm not giving the government a pass here. Not at all. Not at all. But we have to do better. We
All
have
right.
to do better.
All right, Robbie. We got some COVID